Level up your LA Kings experience with Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access and rewards. Enjoy great seats to the game in Section 103 along with Yamava Club access and parking included with your purchase. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings shop item at the game. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn perks on each purchase from the only leading ticket company with a rewards program. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings. Do you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back to another episode of All the Kings Men. I'm Jesse Cohen. I'm joined by Blair Underwood, Ashton James, and Chris Nelson. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic.
I know I asked you guys all at the same time. So I want to start off. I've seen the movie, and I want to say, my first question is for Ashton, because this was something that I was noticing the entire movie. There's a couple scenes, Ashton, where you are allowed to smile. And particularly the scene in the car where I'm blanking on the young lady's name who plays the coach's daughter.
Alexandra McDonald. Yeah, Jesse's character.
Yeah, and so you're sitting in the car with her, and you've just sort of met, and you're getting to know each other, and she's sort of teasing you, and you laugh at her when I think you say you left out handsome, and she says no, I didn't, and you have this very, very likable, very charming energy to you, but the movie requires you to sort of be, put upon through a lot of it, and even now you're smiling. How difficult is it to suppress that urge to be likable? I mean, obviously you're the hero of the movie, but like the movie needs you to go through turmoil, and so you don't get to just be smiling all the time. That must have been a challenge.
It was, I mean, I didn't think about it in that way, but I remember when I was working on it with my acting coach, and there was a scene early on, and he goes, yeah, you should probably find a smile there. And I was like, why? And he goes, after this, you don't get much moments too.
Right.
That was the first time I was like, oh, wow, Dina is really going through it in those ways. So it's yeah, but it was also about trying to have a through line, sure that we had moments to see his humanity, and sometimes a smile is so disarming, and you see someone in a real way in those moments. So I think even those little moments that we get, that it still allows him to, those tiny moments, to be three-dimensional.
Well, so the scenes with in the bar where you're doing karaoke, the scenes with Jesse, the scenes with the teammate. I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on the names right now. But it definitely comes through. Blair, the through line of the film is obviously through the father and through the family relationship. Did you and Ashton build some kind of familial bond, or how difficult is it to play someone's father?
Well, I am a father of 3 biological and 9 stepkids, and also, so that's a big part of my life.
Right.
So much of what we do as actors is just show up and be open. And it was so easy with Ashton because he really is such a great actor who has such an internal life and intensity and emotions underneath. So it really is just good old-fashioned talking and listening and just being accessible to what's happening. So I really kind of fed off of him, the energy, and so much of that. He met my sons last night, or will tonight.
Yeah.
It's very familiar territory of having a son and having children, adult kids, and how to speak to them, how to love them. Blane, my character, is a little more intense because the way he loves, it's tough love, and he really needs him to learn how to fight and man up by his definition of manning up.
Chris, how good a skater is Ashton?
Ashton went from 0 to 100 in 2 years. So, I mean, no, the unfortunate part of the making of the movie is that we lost our original director, Charles Officer. So, when Ash and I first met, I guess, was it 2 years prior to making the film, we had a one-on-one in Toronto and just discuss some things. And my goal for all movies I do is to make the actors look like they can actually play the game. with Ashton, I mean, he adopted it and picked it up so fast. It made it so much easier for me because I've had some actors that, I've done, other movies where we had to pull the actors around on dolly. Ashton got out there and was willing to do his own stuff, his own skating. The only stuff we didn't do with Ashton was blow him up because I'm not going to hit the lead actor.
Sure.
But he did his stuff. He was great, and he was very easy to work with. I've had some tough ones. Ashton was just a pleasure, and he picked up the sport real fast.
I hadn't even thought about this before, but when an athlete signs a contract, there's obviously all sorts of clauses preventing them from doing dangerous physical activities.
Mhm.
Ashton and Blair, is there a similar thing when you sign onto a project where they telling you like no base jumping, no skydiving, no jet skiing while you're doing this because they need you there every day?
Yeah, but somehow when I was training, I had no equipment. When I
Oh
first
no.
started training, I was out on the ice in a sweater and sweatpants, and I was like,
Wow.
guys, if I fall, we're cooked. What's going on?
So
So
So Blair, obviously Ashton has to engage with hockey in the movie because it's a movie about hockey and he plays a hockey player. Chris obviously has a hockey background. Your character, Blair, has in the movie a strong connection to the game and a history with the game. Do you have a strong history with the game? Did you have to learn anything about a new sport in order to, engage with this character in this film?
It's a lot of make believe, so I just had to commit
Okay.
myself to act like I knew what I was talking about.
Sure.
The great thing is we shot this in Toronto, and
Hmm.
in Canada, hockey is like a religion. So it really was
Hmm.
about, again, having open ears, open eyes, asking the right questions, because it really is a specific culture, as you well know.
Hmm.
As I learned.
mm.
So yeah, I just tried to really just soak that up as much as I could and bring that forth in the character.
I mean, the nice thing about sports, sorry to cut you off there, Chris. The nice
Let's
thing
see,
about sports is that, sorry, go ahead.
let's see with Blair. I got to tell you that scene did the exterior, the outdoor scene we did when it was like minus 50 degrees.
Mm.
And Blair went out there, did his thing. He looked at me, goes, "How's it look?" I go, "Yeah, that's it. That's it," and everything. He's yelling at the kids, yelling at his son. I was like, it's a very emotional scene. And we opened the
Oh,
movie with that. And Blair, you crushed it. You
wow,
were
thank you.
that hockey dad who's intense and making sure he gets the most out of his kids. So you did a great job with that.
Man, that means a lot coming from you. So thank you for that.
I hope it wasn't minus 50 in the wherever the garage is that the final conversation between Dean
That was
and
cold.
Blaine happens.
Yeah, they had to find space heaters to put in there because
Oh
it
my
was.
gosh. Listen, I've only been in weather that cold once. My family lives in Ottawa and I went and it was minus 40 and I can't even fathom minus 50. That's Ooh, no thank you. So the movie obviously now the original is it's obviously not as well known as like Slapshot, but hockey is such a specific community that anytime a hockey project gets made, everybody engages with it and knows about it. So there are so many familiar beats in the original that as I was watching this one, I was like, oh, that's the same. The characters, like the names of a lot of the characters are the same. So Racky, for example, is the antagonist, the hockey player. It's not the exact same story, right? He's not trying out for the same team, but Ashton and Blair, and I mean, obviously, Chris, I'm assuming you are well familiar with the original. Um,
Yeah.
there's so many borrowed parts from the original, and yet the new story is so very clearly not, it's its own story. Was it a danger, Blair and Ashton, to try and not learn or watch too much of the original so that this could be its own project, or did you want to, dive deep into the original?
I did watch the original. I watched it twice. When I did my initial callback on there, Charles was like, "Because this is a remake," and I had no idea, and I had to
Right.
fake funk because I was on this audition. I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know that." But I watched it after, and then I watched it again before we started to film, like the day before. I didn't try to like consciously take anything, but
Hmm.
anything subconsciously lives, then it can come out in
Yeah,
its own ways, and then can pay homage to what they did before.
yeah. I
Chris, were
think
you
if I
challenging yourself? Sorry, I'm sorry, Blair. Go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead. No, I was saying I think if I were directing it, I would not have watched it, but because I was just a component, like a puzzle piece as an actor,
Hmm.
I did see it, but I wanted to see what the audience that would know this film would bring with them,
Right.
and kind of see how we compared or contrasted to that. So that was important for me to just to understand that.
Chris, were you trying to challenge yourself to do the hockey scenes better? Because I mean, the original is a hockey movie, but I mean, for the time, like.
I worked on the first one. I mean, I'm not trying to age myself, but I worked on
Oh,
the
Really?
original.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
Damn, I
Okay.
didn't know that, man.
yeah. I was a skate instructor with Rob Lowe way back in the day. So we
Wow.
worked on the
Okay.
first one. So when you start to age yourself, like I worked on the first one, we've done the adaptation of the new one, and I'm on the new one. Okay, great. This is awesome. I I there's certain moments that we have to have that are similar, but like the penalty shot, I'm not going to give the no, not going to give the movie away. But the penalty shot you see in the original, it was slow and cheesy, and the skate, this kicking up the puck between the skates, and yeah, that was kind of cool back then. But we're in 2025, 2026 right now, so hockey's changed a lot. The game's changed a lot. So we made it a lot more real to today's game playing. I didn't. It's important to have some of those scenes, but we just made them look like real, authentic hockey. So I mean, when I did Miracle, we got no real hockey players. When I did Youngblood, we have
Hmm.
real hockey players. When you have real hockey players, you make real things happen. And I was very careful not to make mistakes of, Rob Lowe was going to be left-handed on this day and then right-handed on this day. Ashton
Right.
had his stick left-handed, and he did it all the way through. The people that we had doing the big hits and big stunts because he didn't want to hurt Ashton and rip his head off. Those guys looked just like him. They were fantastic. So I want to make the hockey look as authentic as possible. And that's the main goal and focus when I make these films.
So my biggest question after watching the movie, and there's no answer to this question, but I'm going to ask Ashton and Chris. At the end of the movie in the credit scenes, we find out that Dean Youngblood has made it to the NHL and is a member of the LA Kings. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the movie yet. The
Yeah.
biggest question I had coming away from it is where was he drafted, Chris? Like what spot in the draft? Is he a first round pick? Is he a second round? Like obviously,
There's a
he,
time cut.
yeah.
I would think that he'd be a high second round pick. you know, because with the history and getting there and the team and
Hmm.
obviously torn apart, in Major Junior did a great job with that. But realistically, for him to hop in a game, and it isn't the first game of the season, it isn't the last game of the season, but it's like the whole scene. I'm not going to give the details away. I would imagine that the Dean Youngblood, Ashley's character he'd be a second round pick, a very high second round pick. If I said he's a no first round pick overall, then that means the Kings had an awful season.
Well,
So I'm
that
just
yes,
going to say that
that was
the
part of my
Kings
thought
traded
process. Yeah,
up
Yeah.
to
sure.
get Ashton there so they could get that second round pick. Very, very high second round pick.
Ashton, where does Dean Youngblood get drafted?
Yeah, I was gonna say he went first, but then I knew the implications of that. So
Yeah,
let's just say maybe the Kings traded up some way,
Yeah.
somehow,
fair
and
enough.
he went first.
Uh,
That's my story, and
The real issue for me on like a top five pick is if that were the case, we'd have heard of Dean Youngblood by the time he was 14 years old, right? In coming from that part of the world, there'd be like, that's how crazy hockey is. I think there's that
yeah,
famous tweet about Connor McDavid when he was 14, and somebody said this David McDavid kid is better than half the Oilers, and you're like, yeah, well, turns out
yeah.
turns out he probably is. Um, Blair, the movie is the thing that I was most fascinated about watching it is the original is almost too over the top traditional sports movie. Like, okay, the kid is challenged, then he's got to go ahead and learn to be the best at everything. Right.
mhm.
Not only does he score the game winning goal, but he beats up the bad guy on and then he's carried off the ice on the shoulders, whatever. This
And gets the
movie,
girl.
yeah, and gets the girl. Thank you. This movie was a really fascinating because I was wondering, I was like, oh, are we just going to literally beat for beat remake this movie? But this movie was a really interesting inversion of the original in that you have a kid, the talent is already there, and instead of having to learn how to beat up the opponent, we see a young man who is probably perfectly capable of beating up the opponent, but has to rein it in and has to learn to subdue that part. And I thought that was a really interesting spin on it. How much behind the scenes was the director, the scriptwriter, was the production leaning into that inversion?
Well, I can answer that, but really Ashton, because they were involved with the project for 4 years. I came in 2 months prior to that, so they can
Okay.
speak to it more. But it was definitely a conversation of how do we make this contemporary, like you said, Chris,
Hmm.
2026. And the audience is different now. The world we live in is different now. So
Hmm.
how do you express that internal conflict?
Yeah, and you spoke to it earlier also. It's like how it's similar, but it's not, it's like very different. I feel like we fleshed out Dean's storyline a little bit, but also we wanted to keep like some of the heart in there so that when people watched it, if they had seen the first, that they can still enjoy it but have a new experience, that it wasn't like a scene for scene.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Just it was an interesting conversation since, part of the theme, one of the themes in the film is like masculinity and what that looks like and when it leans toxic and all those different things. So I think it was also about exploring that through the lens of, Dean fighting and does he need to fight? I don't necessarily think we're asking the question is does fighting like belong in hockey? I think that'll always live, but it's just does he as a player, is that his role
Hmm.
in the game and how can he fit in and what's important to him in his journey?
Well, the conversation, obviously, Ashton, it wasn't you, it was a child actor, but the conversation the Dean has with his mother early in the movie, and then it gets called back
Yeah.
later in the conversation between you and Blair. I mean, obviously, it caught me by surprise, and because I was just expecting a beat for beat remake. But the movie, and Chris, this is probably a testament to your work as well. The movie handles so many things that I didn't think about it until a few days later. That when I'm watching a movie, it's really easy for something to yank, or a TV show to yank me out of it as I'm thinking about it. For example, the existence of cell phones in so many movies is handled in a way where you're like, oh, okay, there's a cell phone. Okay.
Yeah.
But Dean, there's the scene in the bar where the fan is filming him. There's the conversation with Jesse when the father is calling. Like cell phones were so seamlessly integrated into this story to contemporary. Like you couldn't have the original with cell phones. I mean,
Right.
obviously because they didn't exist, but there's just obvious, just the way the story works. But this movie, I just thought did, and also, sorry, I'm jumbled all over the place here. Watching Heated Rivalry recently, all I could focus on was the jerseys and the arena and the hockey stuff. And Chris, your side did such a good job of, I never once thought about the jerseys. They just looked like hockey jerseys. And I
Yeah.
know you filmed in, I can't remember which team it was. I think it was Barry in their arena.
Yeah, Barry Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
very close.
so I didn't think about the jerseys. I didn't think about the hockey other than to feel like, oh, I'm watching hockey. But at no point was I pulled out and realizing, like, well, wait a second, that's not a real team. Those aren't the real. And having the announcers sort of do the exposition between scenes, like it all just felt very normal. And it wasn't until a few days later that I realized, oh, I didn't ever get pulled out of immersion in it. And so Chris, just good job out of you and whoever the costume designers and all that were.
Yeah, the wardrobe team was fantastic. I mean, we went through a lot of research about what the jersey would look like, and then we did some of the plates. We were at Barry Colts, the arena, and we shot some huge master shots of that, and we were able to kind of mix them in a little bit. So instead of having to pay for 6,000 fans, we were able to get those fans basically for free. The jerseys matched up, the plays matched up, and we kind of rewrote things as it went. And then with the hockey stuff, is I had to make sure that it's authentic. I mean, that the hockey looks like you'd see. You turn on TV and you watch, let's say the Kings play, Edmonton, for example. Those hockey players need to mimic what's going on in today's, day and age. I don't want to pull people out of it. As you mentioned, you see a cell phone and they shoot a picture of someone's cell phone and it's an iPhone, 11.
Right. Right.
Well, the iPhone 18 is coming out in 2 months, so they missed
Right.
something. So I got to be careful to write these plays and these scenes that they are as up to date as possible. So when you see a big hit, it's like, oh, he would do something like that, and that's what happened to him because he did that, and that would happen in today's day and age.
So, real quick interjection. I was talking to somebody from the LA Kings analytics staff last night, and I was just sort of running them down some of the differences between the two films, Ashton. And just to give you an example of how things have changed over the years, I told them the film opens with Dean Youngblood having coming off a year-long suspension for two-hand, chopping an opponent, and the first reaction was, "Really, a year for that?" That's not really the point. Like, I'm not going to get into like whether or not the suspension was worthy or not. That's just what it was in the
Yeah.
story. Like, let's.
You would say it was not a worthy suspension,
Yeah,
but
no, sure.
Like,
But
We're
actually,
making it's a movie. We're making a movie
yes.
here. Yeah.
Well, he
It's not
had to be
hockey
coming off
story.
of a long suspension for something, and that
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Ashton, hockey players are notoriously superstitious, especially when it comes to their equipment. You got guys like Sidney Crosby. I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's playing with the same shoulder pads he's been using since he was a rookie or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Ashton, did you develop any sort of odd relationships with the, because you had to, I'm sure, learn how to move and act in all sorts of new, hockey gear is not small stuff. There's a lot of it.
yeah, and I got a lot of it, and now I
I'm
own
sure
a
you
lot of
did.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
let's do that.
I think the only thing that I found that I had to consistently do was after I got dressed, I just had to put my left skate on first.
Yeah.
I didn't, it just was a nightmare, especially when I was training. Like I just feel like
Okay.
if I didn't put my left front on first, that session was just terrible. So I had to lock into,
Now, does
left.
that go? So does that then follow that you had to put your left shin guard on first, and and all that, or is it just
Maybe
skates?
in theory, but I just went down to the skates, after I
Okay.
was done and just started left, and those were the sessions I learned the most. When I went right first, I was on the ice for half the session.
Blair, another part of the movie that will occasionally take me out is it's really hard to watch, and I imagine to film, and I imagine to perform as an audience member. And there's a lot of scenes where you're just sitting in the audience watching, but surely you're not, I mean, you're not watching the game. And even if you were, it's not your actual kid, right? You're an actor. And yet at no point was I sort of like, again, I wasn't pulled out, but how difficult is it to sit there? And I'm sure like there's 5 or 6 rows in front of you and they've got lights and cameras and you've got to just pretend you're watching a sporting event, which is one of perhaps the most you know, n unexpected, unscripted things that could ever happen, but you've got to react as if you're watching something that you had no idea what was happening next. I mean, that must be just next to
No,
impossible.
no, it's very true. Yeah, it's just using your imagination, really. But I tell you, it helps. Sometimes Chris would be on the ice. And you're right. There'd be a group of us that you see on camera, and the rest of the arena is.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's Chris like telling his guys, just skate down there, at least so we all have the same eye line, watching the
Right,
same
right.
thing. But Chris was very helpful with that, I tell you, and our director Hubert.
Yeah, Chris,
We call him Rob.
continuity. What's that?
We take one player and he'll have to skate from one end to the other. And that's what we used Alexi for. Alexi was great. He was a young kid, had more energy than known to mankind. He's also one of the actors in the film. But he would just skate up and down. All right, Alexi, we have a big celebration. He would go flying Superman into the boards and big goal scorer, and he would go and do something crazy. So we call them rabbits. They go up and down the ice so everybody can have to watch the eye line. Otherwise, people are kind of looking differently. So it's a great catch, great capture. You saw that. That's cool. Very
I
cool.
imagine continuity on a movie like this must be just next to impossible.
It's tough.
Yeah.
One of the most difficult things is that, when you have, the way we shot it, we might have an OTS over the shoulder of the coach, and then we might have, Blair's POV, and then we'll have Ashton on the ice. Like, what happens if Ashton comes down, gets a pass, scores a goal, and we cut to the bench and cut to the coach? He's in his air, in the hands in the air, but then you see Ashton on the bench. So you got to
Right.
be very
Right.
careful when you do these plays because, obviously if Ashton scores a goal, we all know Ashton scored the goal. He's not to be on the bench. But then we might have Hewitt or someone who passed from the puck. He's on
Hmm.
the bench when the goal. So it's really kind of tricky. So we had two script supervisors to watch all that stuff to make sure that the players that were on the ice were not on the bench during the coach's his shots, his scenes.
Ashton, as the star of this movie, depending on how deep one wanted to get into, like, script analysis, you've got anywhere between 3 and 5 antagonists in this movie. You've got the relationship with your dad, you've got the relationship with the coach. At some point, the relationship with Jesse starts to, get complicated. You've got the relationship with yourself, you've got the relationship with Racky. Like, Dean is just getting it from all sides. How helpful is it to have, a veteran like Blair, at least in that part, the probably the most important, dynamic antagonist. Antagonist is not the right word, but
Sure,
how helpful is it to have someone like him there to play off of?
I mean, it's great because I think that's like the number one internal battle that Dean has, and I guess also external. But it was just a through line of finding all of them. But I think the one with his dad kind of triggered everything else, and then the one with the coach was also instrumental, and Sean Doyle also was like really amazing. But I found all these like through lines and having actors at their caliber was so easy to help me drop into it that I didn't have to like feel like I needed to do more than I needed to. I kind of just let them lead and followed. And I think it was just about capturing all that internal struggle so that when he does find his, his understanding of himself,
Mhm.
it's through his journey and his thought process as well, not just everyone else.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that answer, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I know we've got to let you get to the rest of your day. Chris, excellent work. Ashton, Blair, excellent work. Thank you all for adding another chapter to the hockey cinematic universe, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thanks very much.
Jesse, thank you.
Jesse.
Are joining me now the host of Hockey Fanatics, a new show from Crave, which for anybody in Southern California, you'll know from the intro credits to Heated Rivalry. Dave Foley, also famously from Kids in the Hall. Sorry, Dave, I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this on an email that I sent, but Brain Candy is still one of the most quotable movies between me and my friends, as are many of the Kids in the Hall sketches. We just repeat those.
I should either say thank you or I'm sorry. I'm not sure.
Well, I always try to explain to younger fans that before the internet, before there were memes, there was just quoting movies that you liked back to your friends over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The first question I want to ask you about this show, Hockey Fanatics, is how you got involved with it. Obviously, you're Canadian.
Yeah. Well, I actually came to me from my Canadian agent called me up and said there's this guy, Alex Scrimger, had this idea for a show. And they described it to me, and they said, "Would you be interested in trying to going on board and helping to try and get it sold?" And I thought, "Oh, okay." At the time, I thought, "Well, we'll at least go see. We're going to go see a Toronto-New York game in New York and shoot a teaser video for it." I thought, if all I get out of it is going to the game, I'll be happy. But yeah, we just had this idea of doing a show focused on fans and traveling from NHL town to NHL town, which, for a guy who loves to watch hockey, seemed like a pretty good gig.
So you're from Toronto, but you have spent plenty of time in LA. And the only episode I've seen is the LA episode. But I try to explain this to people who have moved to LA recently, who don't fully understand. And full disclosure, I was born in Toronto, but moved here when I was 3 years old. I've spent summers in Ottawa and Toronto, and I've traveled the country. LA is not one real city.
No, it's not. LA is
100 cities glued together. Yeah, exactly.
It's right. And in fact, everyone who moves to LA, like I was thinking, I don't know why anyone visits LA because it's such a sprawling and inhospitable place. But yeah, you build your own town in your car.
Yes.
You have the streets that are the streets of your town. You have the stores that are on your main street of your town, but you build an entire town that's yours specifically, that you live in when you live in LA. Sometimes you'll share parts of your town with a few people, but everyone has a bespoke LA that they build.
Oh, I like that, bespoke LA. There was a bit they used to run on the Jumbotron a few years ago where they would sort of flash through all the different neighborhoods that made up LA. But of course, 75% of those quote unquote neighborhoods were their own cities with their own mayors and borders. And I was like, Burbank and Santa Monica and Long Beach. And I was like, no, those are all separate cities.
Yeah. But you can't tell while you're driving.
No, well, so we had a fan visit recently from New Zealand, and she was asking about what she should do with her limited time in LA. And she wanted to go to Disneyland and Universal Studios and, all these places. And we were like, well, you're going to have to be here for a lot longer than 4 days.
I remember when one of my first times coming down to LA, I remember driving down to LA from San Francisco and hitting the sign saying we're in LA, and then realizing, we're still a 2-hour drive to our hotel.
Yeah, you probably just hit the northernmost part of the valley at that part. So then, given that LA is not a quote unquote real city, or at least not in the way that cities on the East Coast and Canada are, and given that hockey is still a bit of a novelty here, from your experience, how does the Kings fan base differentiate from New York or Toronto or Montreal?
Well, it's changed a lot since I moved to LA in '95, and I actually looked it up to see. I was trying to remember, who was it? What's going on with the Kings in '95?
Not a lot.
It was the year Gretzky was traded to St. Louis, which I'd actually forgotten he went to St. Louis. But it was I think I came in, in the middle of that year. And so I remember going to get tickets to see the Kings play. And I could get tickets for $8.
Yeah.
Up in the rafters, but still it was $8 to see a hockey game. And it was like Gretzky had left, and no one cared anymore. And so it seemed like, and whenever I'd go to a game, it would be, if it was a Canadian team in town, the stands would be completely filled with Canadians cheering for the opposition. I remember like going to a Calgary game, everyone's in a Calgary jersey. When Toronto was in town, everyone's in a Toronto jersey, including me. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But so it was like that for quite a while when I first got there, until those Stanley Cup runs happened, and then it was a completely different game. Suddenly, to me, I was living in downtown LA at the time, like walking distance to the arena, and I couldn't. It was like startling to see every single bar in the entire city with the TVs tuned to hockey, and I was talking. I was talking to Luke Robitaille about it. That it seems like since those Stanley Cup wins, the fans are a little more steadfast in LA. Am I wrong?
Well, so I'm defensive of the fan base, having been a fan since the mid '80s. I find that the Kings fan base it's tough because it's not only, I would assume, much smaller in size than, say, Toronto or, Detroit or Boston, but also in the city itself, it's the smallest between the Lakers, the Dodgers, USC football, there, some other UCLA basketball. There are some real institutions in the town.
Yeah.
So it's a smaller fan base, but I have found that just means that those who belong to it and have belonged to it for a while are more passionate about it, because it doesn't come easily. You have to fight for it. You have to choose it every day.
It's an awful lot like being a Kids in the Hall fan.
Yeah, sure. True enough.
People are going to ride you about it. People are going to act like you're a fan of what?
Yeah. The phrase I like to use is that being a hockey fan in Southern California I don't really like to use the phrase because it's a bit dismissive, but it's a bit like an alternative lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to say, like, I didn't choose to be a Kings fan. It was thrust upon me by my family, but that's it. I'm in it. And now that's how I live my life.
Yeah, I know. And for me, like moving to LA, it was like, it took me like for a while. And like, I had to make a point. I said, I'm going to become a Kings fan because I love hockey, and I'm thinking I'm living here. But it took me a couple of years to sort of go, all right, I'm not just going to go down when Canadian teams are in town.
So my dad grew up in Ottawa before long before the Senators were revived, and for whatever reason hated Foster Hewitt, and I'm led to believe that's heresy. I know.
Wow, I've never heard that.
Well, he's a contrarian. So he became a Canadiens fan, which was convenient for him growing up because the Habs were fantastic.
Yeah.
But then he moved to LA, and I have always been fascinated by the fact that he made the decision to become a Kings fan. And then as I got older, I grew up a Kings fan, and so it was just a lot easier for him. But if I moved to a different city, I don't know that I could make the choice that you made and try to become a fan. Now, I have the benefit of the internet.
Yeah.
Whereas if you moved here in 95, you wouldn't really have had that. I mean, not yet anyway, and certainly not smartphones for another 20 years.
No, there was no video streaming or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you make that? I mean, how difficult is it to make that transition?
Well, it's that decision that when I'm going to watch the broadcasts of Kings games, I'm going to read about the Kings. I'm going to go down to the arena. I'm going to see, in those days that wasn't so easy. You had to go all the way out to Inglewood, and eat those awful sandwiches. So it was like, I'm just going to, try to pour myself into caring about this team. Because I love watching hockey, and I missed the excitement of watching, and I couldn't see all the Leafs games in those days. As later years, I had the NHL package, then the ESPN package, so I could see all the home games from the Leafs. But it was just that I want to watch hockey, and I live here now, so I'm going to pick a second home team, and I would cheer, and I could cheer for the Kings wholeheartedly, except when the Leafs are in town.
Sure.
Because I always describe being a Leafs fan as being a birth defect. There's nothing you can do about it, really.
I mean, that's how sports fandom should be, I think, personally, but that's just me.
Yeah. So even now, like I've been trying, right now, last 4 years, I've been living in New York, and so I said, well, I guess I'll have to try to become a Rangers fan, and I picked a really bad time to do that.
You're batting over on when you move to towns and start following
really
your teams.
I'm very bad for the hockey teams. When I come to town, you're gonna which I mean, well, at
can
least
you move to Anaheim for us?
I should. I'd love to see them suffer. But at least you guys can thank me for Panarin being there.
Absolutely. I mean, he's incredible. So I was watching the LA episode, and you were talking to Luc Robitaille about the infamous penalty that Torontonians insist that was missed on Wayne Gretzky, which
yes, whatever. It was.
I mean, agree to disagree. But so LA and Toronto play each other twice a year and haven't met in the playoffs since 1993. But
that would have been a Toronto-Montreal final.
It would. I mean, listen, I get it.
That's never going to happen again.
Honestly, frankly, because of how that final did wind up going, I would have had no problem with the Kings losing a valiant, Game 7 loss to Toronto. But unfortunately, we had the best player in the world who never committed any penalties on anybody. So, But so then, as a fan now of potentially 3 different clubs, I don't know how affectionate you've become for the Rangers. Is there one team that hurts, whose failure to win hurts more than the others?
Well, obviously Toronto.
Okay.
For one thing, I mean, I got to cheer on 2 Stanley Cup winning teams in LA. Mm-hmm. And New York, it's still too new, so I'm not heartbroken when the Rangers lose. But yeah, Toronto. I mean, even right now, I'm having trouble this whole season. Like I think my hockey watching is down by about 80% this year.
Yeah.
It was hard to see that team that was so good fail so hard, and then to watch this year that they just can't find their footing. And I miss Mitch Marner so much. In that lineup.
Does Austin Matthews winning a gold medal make it harder to be a Leafs fan after the Olympics?
I would say that was my only silver lining of that, and it's a very thin silver lining. Mm-hmm. It's a tiny little etched. You can barely see it. But,
sure.
I thought, well, maybe winning that gold medal for Austin Matthews will kind of wake him up and get him inspired this year. In the run to the playoffs. I don't know if it has. I haven't tuned in yet.
Well, I watch a lot of Steve Dangle clips, and it seems like it has not. Based on the pitch and tone of Steve Dangle's voice, it sounds like it has not worked. I apologize for not knowing the answer to this. Is there an episode of Hockey Fanatics that focuses on international hockey?
No, there isn't.
Okay, no, because I would love to see. I don't know the geography of Canada enough to know what the biggest city is that doesn't have an NHL team.
Biggest city that's been saying it should have one for a long time is Hamilton.
But isn't Hamilton, and I'm sorry for not knowing Canadian demographics, isn't Hamilton kind of Toronto?
Well, it's kind of Toronto to the extent that Newark is New York.
Okay.
Sure. It's very close, but it's like a 2-hour drive.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's from where I live to the arena sometimes. So
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, look, I'm in New York. There are 3 teams within a 40-minute drive of each other.
Right.
They can be the Islanders. You got, even in Florida, you got 2 teams that are an hour apart.
Yeah.
I think, I always think Hamilton should have a team. I also think like the East Coast of Canada should have a team. I think Halifax should have a team.
There you go. Yeah. So I constantly forget that there are cities that don't have NHL teams, but do have major junior teams. And then my brain translates that. So yeah, Halifax. all of the Toronto suburbs, Sudbury and Barrie and
yeah. These aren't huge cities, but they're at
Right.
least as big as Columbus.
Sure.
Well,
listen, I grew up in Long Beach, California, which is not a huge city, but were it not for LA, in any other setting would be a big city, but because it's separated by zero, like if you're on the freeway from Long Beach to LA, you'd never know that you were leaving one city and entering another, except for the sign on the side of the road. But Long Beach is, I don't know, 600,000 people or something, which is it's a pretty big city, but it's right next to whatever 5 million people in LA. So who cares?
Yeah. And Long Beach was it the Ice Dogs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was an inaugural season ticket holder of those Ice Dogs.
Yeah.
The reason I asked, I was just wondering, like, because I woke up at 3 a.m. and drove, speaking of LA geography, out to the west side of the valley to a friend's house to watch the gold medal game between the States and Canada. And I was the only one rooting for Canada.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I, as I tell people, I identify as Canadian when it suits my needs, and when I don't, I identify as American.
Yeah.
But I got the feeling that it really hurt Canadians' feelings.
Oh my God. Well, I was watching it. I was watching it in Costa Rica. On my iPad, and I had all of the other kids in the hall on a message stream.
Oh, that's cool.
All the way through the game, and Mike Myers on another stream. So we were all watching the game together.
Uh-huh.
And I mean the first thing was when they went to overtime. My first shock was 3-on-3.
Yeah.
What the hell are they doing playing a gold medal game 3-on-3? I thought, we don't, that doesn't make any sense.
No, it's garbage.
And, and when that goal was scored, I mean, all you saw in every, from every source was expletives and, it was like, it was depressing, for Canada. I mean, it's exciting that America won, the U.S. won. I get for less exciting when Kash Patel shows up in the dressing room.
Sure.
And I think it's, again, I try to look for what's a positive, and I go, well, it's, probably good for the game that the U.S. won. I think maybe raise the profile of hockey in the U.S. almost as much as heated rivalry has. So that I cling to, but Canada, especially in these particularly heated moment in history between our two countries. Yeah, I think that loss really hit hard.
So for the show Hockey Fanatics, you've been to all these markets, you've seen all these different teams. Was there one fan that had a really just unexpectedly shocking collection or fan cave or whatever you want to call it, where it really just sort of blew your mind?
Yeah, well, I would say Montreal, like Sunil, this guy Sunil in Montreal, his Habs cave is he's become famous in Montreal for his collection and the way he's decked out his basement, and to the extent that he actually sells tickets to come and watch Habs games in his basement.
That's crazy.
And he gives the money to charities. So people, so he raises money for charity by having people come and watch the game. He's got a bar and a huge TV, and so he's got an amazing. So that's probably the most amazing, and to me, it's particularly impressive because of the fact that he uses it to raise money for really good causes. So,
and I'm going to remove Toronto from this equation because obviously it's the engine that is the hockey machine on the continent. Which city has the best fan base outside of Toronto?
Well, again, you're pushing me to have to say something that will get me beaten up in Toronto.
Oh no, are you say Montreal?
It's got to be Montreal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great. The crowds are really exciting when you go to see at the Bell Center. But surprisingly, another place that's really exciting to see a hockey game is Nashville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been there once. Yeah.
Yeah, that crowd. I don't know, and I think they seem like they've gotten pretty knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. They don't get confused at offside calls anymore. So but yeah, I was really surprised at how exciting it was in the arena. And they weren't having a great season, but I mean, I actually was in town to watch the Predators win 2 games in a row. So, but
I've only been to one Preds game in Nashville, and I don't know how you would study this, but I'd love for somebody to study how a southern town in the U.S. took such a distinct culture like hockey, imported it, and then didn't change it, but made it their own, right? Throwing the catfish, having live music. It's distinctly Nashville, and yet it feels familiar as a hockey fan.
Yeah, it's true. It has a bit of that. You feel a bit like you're at a honky tonk, kind of,
yes.
When you're there. I think, and I think maybe the fighting helped.
That could be, yeah.
That's like it's a bit like a bar fight. That everyone can enjoy. But yeah, it's definitely, because I know years ago I remember being in Nashville, because I have friends in Nashville, and just after the team set up there, and walking down the street, and everyone all up and down the main street there were people in Calgary Flames jerseys, and I was going, I guess the Flames are in town playing a game. And I remember going into a store to buy some cowboy boots, because that's mandatory.
Sure.
And I talked to people in the store. Said, "Hey, what do you think about your hockey team?" And they'd go, "A what?" And it's your hockey team, the Predators. What do you think about we have a hockey team? Yeah. And it's going, yeah. So, where do they play? And I'm going, across the street,
over there,
right outside. Building, yeah. You can see the people going in. And so, everyone I talked to back then, no one knew that there was a team. But when I went back for Fanatics, it was everywhere you went, people, people were wearing the jersey, and people were cheering the team on. And, the sports bars were all playing it. So it changed a lot.
I don't remember what year it was. It was in the last few years. Nashville had the All-Star game.
Oh, did they? Oh, right.
But of course, nobody informed everybody who travels to Nashville for non-hockey reasons that weekend would be right. Because why would you? So I just heard tons of stories from people who went about just bachelorette party after bachelorette party of annoyed people who couldn't find a hotel room, couldn't book a dinner, couldn't anything, because the industry had descended on the town for the weekend.
And it is the bachelorette party capital of the United States, right? Which, as a comedian, is a terrifying prospect.
Oh, I'm sure.
There is no group of human beings more loathed by comedians than bachelorette parties,
because
they destroy
drunk and active in
nights. Because they for some reason they all think it'll be fun to go see stand-up comedy,
right?
And
nothing fun about stand-up comedy, right?
No, not with a bachelorette party in the room.
Well, Dave Foley, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. And for those who would like to watch, I don't think you can in Southern California. You guys were kind enough to send me a screener. But if you want to go out of your way to find a way to watch it, I'm sure you could. But we appreciate any time you spend talking about the LA Kings, even though you're still obviously upset about that penalty. But
yes, very much so. Well, I've been drunk with Doug Gilmour. He's pretty upset about it still too.
Yeah, well, he can. He's got his own accolades to crow about. Dave Foley, thank you so much for joining me. And Mikey Alexander wanted me to let you know that you're still his best friend.
Wow, say hi to my best friend for me. Hopefully, I'll be back in LA soon, and I'll get out to see some more games.